Alright guys, you clicked on this video because you want help setting up a budget. I'm here to help. On this channel, one of the things I want to talk about is investing in stocks, but there's a few things we need to do to get to that point. So the first thing to get ready to start investing, if you're not already, or even if you are investing already, would be to start a monthly budget. So what I mean by budget is having a map for your finances monthly. So you can kind of see where you're spending your money and pick up on some trends. Maybe it'll allow you to set some financial goals. So step one is to start using a budget and track that for a few months. So the way that I track my finances and input them into my budget is quite simple. I go through my checking account and my credit card that I use every month. So at the end of the month, I go through both of those and I physically write down all of my spending. I categorize it into, groceries, eating out, utilities, personal spending, savings, rent, all of those kind of categories that you have every month. Gather up all that information at the end of the month and input it into a spreadsheet or a list of some sort, and then do that for a few months. After a couple months or a few months, you can kind of see some trends, where you're spending a lot, and maybe it'll give you some opportunity to start reevaluating that section or that item. I'll give you a personal example. So I started doing a strict budget maybe about a year and a half ago. So I noticed right away after putting my expenses into the spreadsheet that there was some numbers that really stood out. One of those being the amount I was spending on groceries and food, including eating out. But I noticed I was spending on average $900 a month. That's a ridiculous amount to be spending on food. So I've reevaluated that and I've really cut out a lot of my eating out or snacks and takeout food, especially delivery. Delivery is the one that really kills me. Getting a meal delivered often turns into like a $40 expense. So I'm not going to preach, you need to make every meal at home. Eating out is fun and it's part of your social, life, but managing that maybe once a week instead of once every couple days. The better you understand your finances and where you actually stand, the more realistic goal you can make. Say your goal is to save $500 a month, but there's no way you can squeeze an extra $500 out of your current income. Well, then that's not a very realistic goal, so you're going to be demotivated and it's going to be hard to stick to that if it's a really big struggle. But after mapping out your finances, maybe there's a way you can cut out $200 or $300 worth of expenses and your savings of $200, combine those together and you can hit your $500 goal. So if you're looking to take more control of your finances, there's really two things you need to focus on. Let's keep it very, very simple. You can either make more money, obvious solution that most people try to go for first. The other way would be to save more of the money that you are already making. So let's get a budget going so that we can make better decisions with the money that we're bringing in and also maximize our income. In my case, I'm focused on both. My job allows me to make more money based on my performance, so I'm very grateful for that. But also I'm very focused on savings so that the money that I do bring in, I'm being very thoughtful with how I'm spending it. So the way that I make my budget is that I track my expenses and at the end of the month I write them all down. I just jot them down on paper and categorize them. Then I transfer that information into a spreadsheet so it's a little bit more clean and easy to read. But ultimately I just want to go through my checking account and my credit card statement and just write every transaction down. From my big ones obviously down to $1 or $2 transactions. A few of those a month or week really start to add up, so we want to track every expense. I'm a very visual person, so I found that transferring that information into a pie chart was the most visually impactful for me. Seeing each chunk and having it based on a percentage was eye-opening. So I could see how much of a percentage I'm spending on rent or food or insurance. I can kind of compare each category and visually, like the large ones stand out so you can reevaluate those or just take a look and see where you can maybe cut back. Some things I'd recommend is, calling your insurance company, calling your phone company, calling your cable company, and just reevaluating those rates every once in a while. There's often something they can do. There's very competitive industry, so, try those sort of things, make room where you can. I find after doing this for a few months, you can really spot some trends, whether those trends are good or bad. Some good trends might be that you're saving more every month or you're spending less. Some bad trends might be that your spending is increasing, or that your credit card debt or other debt is increasing. So some of the trends that I've noticed in my own budget that I've had to reevaluate were, for example, how much I was spending on food. I found that some months I was being just straight up wasteful. I was spending around $900 a month on food. And for some context, that's actually how much I spend on rent right now. So for me to be eating the same amount as I spend on housing was eye-opening. But until I mapped it out on a budget and I looked at this month over month, I didn't really notice. I knew I spent a lot on food, but I would have guessed maybe $500 or $600. But that was way off the mark. Once you have a budget and you're kind of tracking these, you can really make realistic goals because you'll know where you actually stand. If I was saying, I'm going to spend $600 a month on food and that's what I thought I was already doing, that goal might not be as important to me. After mapping it out and seeing that I'm spending $900 and that I'm $300 over budget every month that I'm actually think I'm spending, then it lights a fire and gets you motivated to do something about that. So once you make your budget, look for some trends and look for some areas of opportunity where you can spend less money or where things you can cut out. I find monthly subscriptions and little things like that really start to add up, especially if you're not using them. For instance, here's a really bad example. I have an Apple ID that I barely ever use. I pay $10 a month for storage on just because I don't want to lose what information is there. So realistically, I should just log into there and save that stuff so that I have it saved in a hard copy and I'm no longer paying for that cloud storage. So that would be an easy $10 a month for me to save. Doesn't sound like much, but over a year, $120, over 2 years, $240, 3 years, $360. You can kind of see the trend, but you leave it alone for a few years and just forget about it. It's easy to have those things cost you $500 or $600. I also found that once I was tracking my spending every month, I was more mindful of my spending in general because I knew that I would have to write this on my budget and kind of take ownership for it again at the end of the month and write it down and add it to that total. So I became more mindful when I was shopping or when I was looking to purchase things. When making your monthly budget, you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Don't skip any items. Don't leave anything off of your list. This is an exercise to open your eyes and see where your money's actually going. So I track every dollar. It sounds crazy, but it's really easy. It takes me about 10 minutes at the end of every month, and then I have it done. So I don't worry about doing it daily or weekly. I don't worry about inputting my purchases into an app once I'm done them. I find that's just too tedious and I lose track of it. I forget things. So for me, the best way is just to look at my credit card statement and my debit statement at the end of the month and just write all of that into my budget. I'm not saying budgeting apps are a bad thing, but for me, it just didn't work. I didn't want to be spending a few minutes every day doing this. I'd rather just do one chunk at the end of the month. I prefer to batch a lot of my tasks, so rather than doing small chunks, I'll just wait until there's one meaningful chunk that I can get done. So once you have your budget, let's be critical. Look at this and see where you can make changes, where you might have opportunity to cut spending, or what is costing too much that you really don't value. Let's look for those little financial leaks, like I gave an example of that Apple ID subscription that I pay for that I have no use for. Look for those little things and cut those out right away. $20 or $30 every month doesn't sound like much, but like I said earlier, it does really start to add up. Every dollar that you do save from wasteful spending can be allocated into meaningful savings. Once this becomes a habit, it takes even less and less time and less thought. So it's kind of just programmed into me now that at the end of the month, I pull up my statements and I just track all my spending. It's kind of rewarding and kind of exciting now. It sounds lame, but it is exciting to see how well I've done. Now that my focus is savings, it's fun to see every month just what percentage I can save and if I can increase it month over month. Once you have a good understanding of where you stand, then you can allocate some money to savings. And what I'd recommend is actually automating that. So every month I have X amount of dollars that come out automatically into a tax-free savings account. And then at the end of the month, I actually do another chunk of savings in a stock purchase. Make your budget fun. Add some color, add some design, make it visually pleasing, make it your own. The information is what's important. I don't care how you do it. I just care that you do it. The easier you can make this process, the longer you'll stick with it. And after a few months, it really just becomes a habit. The time that you put into making this budget versus the opportunities that can sometimes come from it are very worthwhile. This is the time to be brutally honest with yourself. There's no need to sugarcoat it or bullshit yourself. Put your money down there and see where you're spending it. Now that you know where you're spending your money, you can actually look at this information and make realistic changes. If you're spending way too much on food or way too much on your car, then take control of that. Let's see what we can do to make changes. Whether that's calling your car insurance company and negotiating your rates, whether that's maybe getting rid of your car that you really can't afford with a monthly payment and getting something you can purchase outright so that you don't have that payment any longer. But once you have a budget and you're looking at this information, there's some things that are going to stand out to you more than others, and that's where you really want to take action. I'll do a video in the future about some things that I don't buy anymore. There's a few things that you can really just stop purchasing altogether that will save you a lot of money. So we'll touch on that in a future video. Another thing that I want to touch on in future videos is purchasing stocks. But in order for us to be purchasing stocks and investments, we need to have money to save. So budget is step one. That will give us the information that we need to know in order to make a good decision or a goal when it comes to investing. So step number one, make a budget and follow that for a few months. Look for some trends and see where you can maybe save some money, make changes, and get yourself as kind of fine-tuned as you can. Then you can see how much money can I realistically save every month. At that point, you want to automate that savings or have it kind of happen automatically so that you save the money first and it's not in your account and kind of tempting you or burning a hole in your pocket kind of thing. So allocate that savings right away, get that out of your account so that what you're left with is what you can spend. By better doing this budget and saving off the top, you'll be set up for the month and still be very comfortable.